All right, welcome in to the 11th episode of Bulldozer Fantasy Football Podcast. It's been a minute. I've been very busy. I was on vacation pretty much the entire month of July. Went to South Carolina, celebrated my birthday at Summerfest, and went to Oregon for a while. It's been a long month of drafting as well for the league, which is kind of what I anticipated with two owners per team. And I know maybe it took a little longer than some of you would like, but we still have got plenty of time. Training camp just ramped up. We've got a little bit of news and notes because, quite honestly, the last month has been absolutely quiet. Otherwise, until last week when we've just started with all of the OTAs and whatnot. So. Um, A couple of fun things to start off with in the news and notes section. We've got D Hop to the Titans, which is interesting for Traylon Burks. I wouldn't yet complain, but he was definitely he's not going to benefit from it right away. But you can buy in the dip, go grab him. And as for D Hop, I think this is definitely a downgraded quarterback, but he's still going to be a back end wide receiver one, high end wide receiver two for your dynasty team for the next 2 years. So probably go grab him while Tannehill's also sunsetting on his career. D Hop is probably going to do the same as a few other vet wide receivers that have signed in Tennessee over the last decade. So got some good injury news, some bad injury news. We'll start with the good. Javante is cleared for contact. I believe actually as of today he is cleared or has been practicing with no limitations was the report. So that's awesome. Good news for him. Tim Patrick, unfortunately, this is where the bad news starts. He went down with a Achilles tear. So another year without Tim Patrick, probably the end of his career because of his age, and quite honestly, a team can't just have somebody. I mean, he got paid, luckily, but it is now 2 years in a row that he'll be removed from football, and he was a wide receiver three at best, so I wouldn't necessarily hold on to him too much. Maybe just drop him to your waiver wires if you have somebody else that you've been looking at. And then there's Joe Burrow with the calf strain. Nothing to worry about yet. Now, if we get closer and he's still not practicing or anything, towards like week one, then maybe start to be concerned a little bit. But obviously, you're not going to do anything about it in a dynasty league. You're just going to kind of hold. So, let's go ahead and move on to Aaron Rodgers. He reworked his contract. Perhaps something coming for them signing wise. I know Dalvin Cook is in town for them, or was in town, and is probably trying to get signed somewhere. But as of right now, there's room for maybe a trade. Maybe Jonathan Taylor goes there. That would be awful for Breece Hall and Jonathan Taylor. But Jonathan Taylor is the other big news. He is doing something crazy over in Indianapolis. Something happened between him and Jim Irsay. And now Jonathan Taylor's trying to get out of Indy. So we'll see what happens. Maybe go grab a couple of these other backs. But if there is a trade involving Jonathan Taylor, I would assume that the Colts would sign maybe one of these other guys that's been out there. And then with the holdouts of all the running backs, you've got Saquon signed, but with all the holdouts of all the running backs, you've got potential for other rookies or for other backups that have been sitting behind, those like Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon. You've got potential for some of these vets that have been out there to get signed, or potential for some of these backups to maybe shine and take over for a few weeks out of the season. So, depth at the running back position is always going to help. And best of luck to those with, Josh Jacobs, and hopefully he doesn't sit out any games. I wouldn't worry too much. I think he'll end up playing, but as of right now, grab Zamir White, of course. So let's go ahead and over the last month we obviously had this draft. Let's go ahead and get into what happened with it and kind of look at the draft results. and kind of break it down a little bit. I want to go team by team a little bit and kind of just get that assessment in no specific order. So we'll just jump into it. you know, every team looks good in their own way, and I kind of want to give my take on what's going to happen over maybe this season or for the future, and just a little snippet for each team. Nothing too crazy, nothing too in depth, but we'll start with my own team, so that way nobody feels like they're picked out. I mean, I am the best team, of course. I don't want to give anybody two cents about it, but me and Richard feel confident with our draft. We feel pretty good about the trades we made. So we decided to definitely trade down a few times, which I think was probably a few other people's method in the draft or strategy. But we wanted a solid core of players rather than having a superstar. And maybe, in the process we'll find a superstar, but we just felt like the best approach to winning back-to-back in a competitive league like this was solid depth. So we don't really have a true weakness per se, in my opinion, because we have a cornerstone player at each position. We've got Josh Allen, or not Josh Allen. We traded Josh Allen for Bijan Robinson and Anthony Richardson. Of course, we gave up essentially Josh Jacobs in that deal as well. So it was Josh and Josh for Bijan and Anthony Richardson. So we've got a Bijan, Anthony Richardson. Those are quarterback, running back right there. Then we got Metcalf at wide receiver, and then we also have Kincaid at tight end. Because in a premium, you want to have someone you can rely on. And then outside of that, we just kind of drafted solid depth behind all of that. We'll move on to Z Campbell's team. Something to worry about for sure. He's always got an interesting draft strategy. Him and Austin probably teamed up on this and thought really hard about what they wanted to do. And it looks like they went ahead and just hammered the wide receiver position. Let's see if we can kind of go by team here, so we're not just looking at a messy draft board. Hold on. No, that's not what I want. Oh, there we go. And boop. That's kind of small. It's a little bit bigger, but how do I scroll through the teams? Not just my own. Okay, we'll just go to this way is fine. All right, so that's annoying. Well, this would be annoying to do. How come I can't? The phone looking view is the mobile view is so much better, and I can't pause this recording, so we're just gonna let this roll. You guys are gonna suffer with me here. All right, this is just the worst. All right, we'll go back to the draft view. We just made so many trades, you can't even really tell whose team is who. All right, so Z Campbell's, you can kind of obviously tell he went very hard with the wide receiver position, which is an absolute. That's my normal strategy that I like to go with, trading back, drafting wide receiver and quarterback, and then filling in with the quarterback value as it comes. So his team consists of CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Treylon Burks. Where else did he trade into? Jackson Smith and Jigba. Yeah, so he's just got a solid core of wide receivers. And then he filled in the pieces around with C.J. Stroud, Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, and then ended up getting some quarterback value late in the draft as well. So solid team for sure. Someone to worry about. Everyone's obviously a competitive team in this because you're starting off and everything looks great in the off season, of course, but it doesn't kind of formulate until midway through the first season. Second season starts rolling around. That's when your dynasty team starts to really shape up and you kind of start to see what you really have. So anyways, we'll move on to H. Christ and his brother. They drafted 2 quarterbacks very early. I do think that maybe they traded up a little bit early for Deshaun Watson, but that's just a personal preference. I think he's kind of, just in a wary, precarious situation, and I wouldn't trust it too much yet. But Garrett Wilson's a great wide receiver to build around. Hopefully Swift is a feature back and not just a complimentary passing back of a four-headed monster there in Philly, because he's going to have to rely on DeAndre Swift a lot. So I would say, if Ramondre gets the backfield alone, I do expect them to sign someone too. Aside from that, age crisis team, I do like the wide receivers and the quarterbacks that he's with right now, but could shape up to be different in a year or so. We'll see. And then we'll move on to Jason and Pete's team. They have a solid all-around team. Hopefully allowing Keenan Allen and Brandon Cooks to fill in while Jameson hopefully acclimates to the NFL. Aside from, that, they have studs at every other position and should be playoff contenders each year. They usually are. Josh Allen's always going to get you enough points to be competitive. Tyreek Hill is going to be great for another 3-4 years, obviously. Kyler Murray, if he shapes up and comes back healthy, he's going to be great. J.K. Dobbins, I don't know what's going on with his situation. He does need to come back and play. Kittle is an awesome tight end. So they've got a good team. Javonte Williams is coming back healthy. They're looking real solid. And then we'll move on to another team that's kind of been, doing their thing as usual in every league. I see these two doing or competing to do this, and now they're together and doing it pretty well. So Selk and Basement Beard, they have traded most of their assets for future picks. We had a huge trade of Justin Jefferson for A.J. Brown, plus like a couple of firsts, which just adds to the pile of first-rounders that Selculated and Basement Beard have. I think they've usually used this strategy, and they're doing it pretty well this time again. And I've seen it for, I think, 2 years now in Traders, which is one of our other leagues that we're in together. Selculated has traded most of his assets for future picks, and those picks have come to fruition. And his team looks dominant, and he's gonna probably be a playoff contender for a very long time. But who knows if it's gonna work like that this time, and we'll see. But they do have a lot of first rounders, and 2024 is supposed to be a loaded draft class. So, good on them for getting ahead of it. I wish I definitely had more picks in that draft. I even gave them some of my seconds. So we'll see what happens. Non-Soy Boy and Beefish have a sneaky good team and are probably just relying on Freiermuth and Jordan Love to take that step forward and become playmakers and win games for them. So their team is absolutely just as competitive as everyone else's. I've been saying it. All these teams look great. They've got Chase, Taylor. If he even gets traded to a team that needs a running back, it's going to be awesome. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And then Maxwell and Chives have 2 amazing quarterbacks and a solid running back room. I'm a little bit worried about their wide receiver room. If you look at it, they're about 1 injury away from really neat. I mean, Debo is injury riddled usually, and a part of an offense that's just going to be, filled with other talented players that could take the spotlight any week. And then there's Jahan Dotson, who's still trying to surpass McLaurin. We'll see if he does it. I mean, he got injured last year as well, but he had an amazing touchdown percentage on all of his targets. And I think aside from that, they're relying on Romeo Doubs and Terrace Marshall, who, there's believers out there still, but he's kind of faded, obviously. We'll see what happens. I think they also have. Let's see, who else did they get? I would hope that they got someone else wide receiver-wise. It's hard to look at this board because I know they traded around quite a bit. Oh, they got D-Hop, and I would assume someone else. We'll see. And then we've got Dak and Mr. Self. So Dak took some sneaky sleepers. He was sandwiched between my picks. He was at the turn, and I was at the second pick overall. course, we were both kind of trading in and out anyways, but hopefully Breece Hall doesn't have a big signing in the backfield, and Rachaad White can get a good workload. But without an addition to those teams, he's looking at a very, very solid team for an empire strategy, of course. He's got, young, youthful wide receivers with veterans that can, kind of hold his team together while the others come along. It's got Mims, Sutton, Kirk, Deontay Johnson, McLaurin, Addison, Kupp. And then he's going to, have solid production from Kirk Cousins as always, and Tannehill's a vet. And then we'll probably end up see, Patrick Mahomes doing his usual, carrying the whole team. So we'll move on to UNC and Skull. I think they definitely traded quite a lot for CMC and are hoping for their team to kind of be carried on his shoulders. It's been done before, and, CMC, for how long he's been in the league, is surprisingly young still. And he's in a much better offense. We got to see it at the back end of last year after he got traded. But if Bryce Young doesn't pan out for UNC and Skull, they could be absolutely in scramble mode. So we'll see what happens. And let's see, we're getting down to the last couple of teams. Not that they're the worst, but the Bettocks and Phil McCock, just a horrible name, have a few cornerstone players. I think they've got some good youthful players in Olave and Gibbs and Hurts. Pickens hopefully takes a step forward, and Mechie is getting some hype from camp. But aside from that, I think their quarterback position could be a little tough because they don't have necessarily that much depth after Hurts, and they're going to be relying on Trey Lance. So we'll see what happens. And then Bagels and his brother took more of a redraft approach, in my opinion. But if you really think about it, a redraft approach in an Empire League isn't the worst because, in a matter of 2-3 years, by the time your guys are retiring, you hopefully have, some picks or some youthful guys that have replaced those people. So we'll see what happens for Bagels in the future. But as of right now, they are a very competitive team. They've got Devontae, Saquon, Travis Kelce, and they traded for Jefferson. And then they also had Alexander Madison, Kamara, Connor. So, Aaron Rodgers, Geno, Jared Goff. Not young by any means, but absolutely formidable in every position. And then the last team I think that I have not gone over is Lick My Gooch. He's got Lamar Jackson, Austin Eckler, Stephon Diggs, Christian Watson, Quentin Johnston, Joe Mixon, Pickett, Miles Sanders. So he's got a solid team with some youthful upside down at the bottom. I think, if Pickett ends up being the guy for Pittsburgh and throwing 30, 35-ish touchdowns, that's going to be awesome for his team. Outside of that, he could maybe be hurting for quarterback in the future, but we'll see. Overall, I think this league is going to be an absolutely competitive, tooth and nail kind of climb to the championship type of league. We'll see who ends up taking it all. I do think, Travis Kelce provides an edge, so that's a team to worry about for sure. But there's some teams with some different strategies. Definitely a different set of dynasty players that I've ever played with. So this is fun for me personally, and I hope everyone who's in the league is enjoying it. I think as far as recording wise, we're going to start getting into a few more like 20-25 minute recordings where we drop maybe twice a week, probably twice a week now, once we get settled into the new schedule at work and everything. But as of right now, I think next week or later this week, I think I could probably put out another one on Friday. We'll be running through my Scott Fishbowl episode where I break down my draft and how I did in that one, and maybe go through my mirror draft, which is over. But that one's got a lot of weird settings, and we can kind of dive into that, which is fun. But outside of that, I appreciate everyone who's listening and tuning in, if at all. And I hope you guys have a great Tuesday. Thanks so much. Bye.